The BMS, battery management system, or battery monitoring system. I don't know. One of those two. The BMS's job is to keep you from breaking stuff. If you want to learn how that works, basically, and also how to build your own, stick around for the rest of this video. The BMS has several jobs. One of them is to act as a balancer. So it balances the cells. It's usually an active balancer. And I'll explain what that means. So this is a LTO bank, and it is a 2S or a 6S, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2P, 1, 2. So it has 6 cells in series, 2 series in parallel. This is a battery balancer. We're going to talk about it too. Now the BMS has one of these involved in it. This is an active balancer. And if you see the voltage on, you can see that they're not all exactly the same. But what it's doing is this active balancer is taking voltage from high spot, moving it to a battery with lesser voltage. And it's continually doing that. So it keeps all the batteries the same. It's very efficient and it's very precise. Now you also have something called a passive balancer. They're usually really inexpensive. What they do is take the lowest voltage battery and mark it as the key point, and they use resistors to bring the others down to that level. And they burn the energy off as heat. They're terrible. Never use a passive balancer. You want an active balancer. You can get this one without the fancy screen, but just the balancer for about 25 bucks. Don't skimp on your balancer. Back to the story. So a BMS will have a balancer like this inside of it. But that's only one of its jobs, is to balance these cells. And what I mean by balance the cells, anything that you have in this row, okay, 1, 2, 3 batteries, 5, 25, it doesn't matter. This is considered a cell as far as this thing is concerned. That whole row. Because since the positives are up here together and the negatives are there, they're going to balance themselves in this row. These are going to stay the same because they're all connected by positives and negatives. They have no choice but to stay the same. Now, going from this to this is a different story. There's nothing over here that's going to make it want to balance. That's why you have a balancer. It takes these cells and balances them with the other cells. Okay? That's in that 6S. When you buy a balancer, you buy it with enough channels to handle the series count that you have, whether it be 6S, 8S, 4S, whatever. Now, beyond being a balancer, the BMS also has a few other jobs. One of them is to prevent you from doing stupid stuff when it's cold. Okay? Basically, when it's cold, when it's really cold, when I say cold, I mean below the battery's temperature of operation. For example, headway cells are not any good below freezing. Once they get down below freezing, they become very dangerous. As long as you're not charging them or taking power out of them, they're fine. In fact, for the most part, you can take power out safely at below freezing, but you can't put power in. That's where things turn into a problem. Well, a BMS can protect that battery from that situation. Explain a little more here in a second. It can also handle voltage. So if the battery's voltage becomes too low, it can turn off the ability for it to take, it can disconnect it basically from the circuit. If the voltage becomes too high, it can disconnect it from the circuit. So it's going to keep the voltage between 2 points no matter what, and it's going to keep the temperature between its set points no matter what. So the battery is always going to be within the realm of everything when it's in operation. And now, let me tell you a story. This involves me making a bad decision, doing something stupid that is a very common thing to do. It was in the middle of the winter time. It was probably 10 or 15 degrees outside. My Tahoe, this guy right here, had been setting up for about a month and a half or more, not moving. And we lived right beside a business, and the parking lot was right next to our house. So I used that business's back parking lot as my parking spot. We were limited on parking in our little duplex we had. So it had been sitting there for a while. Well, like I said, it was cold. There was also snow everywhere. And they let me know, the business come out and let me know, hey, we're going to have somebody come plow the parking lot. And we need, tonight, we need to make sure that your Tahoe is not there so we can get the parking lot clean. I said, okay, bet. So I run out to the Tahoe to fire it up and move it over to the yard so that they could do their thing. Well, the battery was dead. And what do? I went and got the wife's car, brought it around over there, hooked the jumper cables up, fired the Tahoe right up, bang zoom. I whip it out of the parking lot and going around into our driveway, and I noticed that there was a lot of light, because I don't have a sense of smell anymore, so I didn't smell the smell, but I noticed the light. I looked back and there was just a wall of fire behind me. A lot of fire. It was everywhere. Big fire. I drove another 20 feet into the snow because all I'm thinking is I got to put this fire out, right? Snow is fire, snow, water, that's the logical thing to do in an emergency. So I drove into the snow, I jump out, I pull the door open, and I start shoveling armloads of snow in there trying to bury the thing. In my mind at this point, I've already thought about it enough to realize that water is not good for lithium fires. But I don't have anything else to work with. I don't have any clothes to throw on it, no blankets. So I said, well, okay, piles of snow. I'll just bury the thing in snow. That kind of sort of worked, but it didn't. It was still burning because there was still power, happening, and the chemistry was still doing chemistry. So I ran in the house, and the only thing I could find fast was a pair of hedge trimmers. The big ones with the long handles that you snip little branches off with. In a pinch, they'll cut wire. So I run out there with the hedge trimmers, and I'm snipping my big power wires. Finally, I throw some more snow on it, enough to die down the fire, and I drag the thing out, throw it in the snow. It got buried in the snow in a snow pile. It melted its way in there, and it got put out. Now, this involved me making a bunch of bad decisions, doing a bunch of things that I shouldn't have done, but also not really uncommon things to do. So there's three big things that happen. One, temperature. The battery was way below its temperature range. Headway, I don't trust it below freezing. Some people say it can go lower than that, some higher. I don't know, but I don't trust it below freezing. In fact, I don't even mess with headway at all anymore. But it was below temperature. That's my fault. Two, it was dead. Also my fault. And three, I charged the shit out of it with about 670 amps of potential alternator power. So I took a below freezing, dead, cold ass battery and threw 670 amps at it all at one time. I don't know if there's a battery out there that could have took that torture and not went up in flames. So not the fault of the headway. I just don't trust headway anymore. Don't trust it at all. But that was all on me. Now here's the thing. Had there been a BMS in place, number one, the battery wouldn't have been dead. The BMS would have sensed the voltage dropping below a certain threshold and would have just cut it off from whatever was pulling the voltage down, which would have been the drain from the vehicle. And so it would have been sitting there at, 80%, 75%, whatever. It would have been sitting there at a reasonable, not totally dead state. Number two, the BMS would have sensed the temperature was way below the threshold that battery should operate in and would have disconnected it anyway. Okay, even if the voltage was still up. So that's two things that would have prevented it from catching on fire. The third thing is the BMS regulates how much power goes in as it's charging. So it's regulating how much power goes out and how much power is coming in, which means if the battery was warm enough and was not dead, it would have allowed it to be charged based on the percentage of battery that was dead. So if it was drained quite a bit, it probably would have let more power in, and as it goes to topping off, it would have throttled the power down. It depends on how awesome that BMS happens to be, how well it regulates it. But the fact is, a BMS would have totally prevented that. Okay? So why don't we, as car audio people, run BMS on all of our lithium batteries? Well, that's easy. They're just not big enough. The biggest BMS I found out there is rated at 300 amps, and that's 300 amps maximum. If you hammered that thing with 300 amps for any length of time, it would malfunction or overheat or something. It's just not designed for what we do. However, I do have something I want to show you. Check this out. Okay, we're back over here with the active battery balancer. This is the key part to our BMS. We have this. These things run about 60 bucks for the one with the gauge. So now we know this can take care of balancing the cells, which is most of the job of the BMS most of the time. So now what happens if the temperature is too low? The cells are too cold. That's where this little guy comes in. This is a 12-volt thermostat. It'll work on any voltage from like 9 to 24 volts. And it's got this little thermostat in here, which can be easily put down here against the cells, run in there to give it a reading of the temperature. And you can program this to behave the way you want it to in the temperature. So you would set it to heat, and then set the temperature to where it kicks on and off, just like you would a thermostat in the house. And then when this kicks on, when the temperature drops low enough, that comes on, it's going to trip the relay. Now the relay has two jobs. One, they make little heating pads. This is not one, this is a piece of sound deadener, but we're assuming it is. They look similar to this. You can put down underneath your cells. They make these, and it's got two little wires, a ground and a positive, real simple. This turns on the heating pad, okay, using the power from the battery, because it can be discharged even when it's ridiculously cold, especially at the low power we're going to do. So this is going to start heating the batteries up, and also discharging them will actually start warming them up as well. The other thing this is going to do, so it's going to kick that on. The second thing it's going to do is trigger this to disconnect. So it's going to kick on the heating pad and disconnect this. This is a 500 amp big relay. You could use multiples of these if you need to and trigger them all at the same time. So if you need 1,000 amps or 1,500 amps of current capability, you would just use 2 or 3 of these in a row inside your enclosure. So you would just go jump over, jump over, jump over, and you would tap onto this with your alternator and your amplifiers, right? All that would come through here. The battery would be separated from everything else while these were open. So it would close this circuit, open this circuit at the same time. Once the temperature got up to the right point, it would open this circuit and close this one and allow the battery to be able to function again. So now you have your low temperature and heating situation under control. Now, what about the voltage thing? There's actually volt meters out there that have a warning light that comes on, and also regulator. So you have a voltmeter that can literally cut power if the power dips below a certain point. That actually exists. You use that same rig to disconnect the power. Use the second one with the voltage to trigger the big boy to disconnect a second relay for this. So you would have two sets of relays, one for low and high voltage cutoff, another one for low and high temperature cutoff. And then you would have your heating pad down there to do the heating. So you could totally build this as much of the logic into it as you want to. You wouldn't necessarily need the low and high voltage cutoff. You may just want it to, may not even want to heat it. You may just want it to protect itself if it's too cold. That one thing, right? So if it drops below a certain temperature, the thing just automatically disconnects. You could do that without having anything but the relays here and your thermostat. Bob's your uncle. So you can build as much of this as you want to in here. I want to point out one other thing too. You only really have to disconnect the alternator from the batteries. So you could have an alternator input on your battery which goes through the relays, and then an output from your batteries that goes to the amplifier and doesn't go through the relays. So all you're doing is stopping the alternator from being able to charge the battery. You're not going to shut the battery off and make it so that it can't power the amplifiers. And that way you actually will be pulling some power out of the batteries and causing them to heat up. As that happens, your thermostat would kick on and close it so that the alternators can charge them again. So there's lots of ways you could wire this. It doesn't have to be a compromise. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think that's pretty cool. You could use as many of the big relays as you want, make the system as big as you want to, you could turn off the whole damn vehicle. You could shut all the power from all the batteries off, all of them off completely, just with that thermostat. And you could also have it set up either to fail with the power connected or to fail with it disconnected, however you want to. And you could also put an override switch on there so that it would not cut off in the middle of demo or whatever. Or you could have the override be handled by the ignition. So whenever you start the car up, it's going to bypass all that. I wouldn't suggest that because then you'll wind up with a situation like I had. But you could set it up to where it disconnects if the voltage gets too low and not even have thermal protection. And then you could use that, trigger your car to make it automatically reconnect when you hit the ignition, because it's going to charge back up. There's just all sorts of ways you can configure this. So I'm not showing you exactly how to do an exact thing. What I'm doing is giving you enough information for you to experiment and learn. It's pretty cool. And if you guys haven't already done it, hit the subscribe button. This is Car Audio channel and we have a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of other cool stuff that happens here. We're a community and we help each other a lot. And you're going to see me work on a lot of crazy stuff. So slap that subscribe button. Share this video if you got anybody running crazy lithium. You might be able to help them out. Even if you don't use hardly any of the ideas, that one might be the one.